Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. It is me, Kay, and I'm here today to discuss Friday nights. What is it? Friday Night Lights season 2. Okay, so y'all, I was doing a little research on Friday Night Lights. And I learned during season 2 of Friday Night Lights that was around the start of the last writer's strike. So a lot of the storylines that came up in season 2, even though they were good, they never had any conclusions, guys. So and some of the characters that was introduced in season 1, they did not come back up in season 2. And one character I thought who was going to come back up in season 2 was Waverly, because we never found out what happened to Waverly, and I was kind of mad. I mean, it was given "Where's Waldo?" hashtag "Where's Waverly?" because Waverly was missing. Okay, so there were a total of 15 episodes in season 2. I think season 1 had, let me just go back and double check because I'm right here on my computer already. I can just go ahead, click, and look. Season 1 had 22 episodes. Okay, season 2 had 15 episodes. And so around this time, the season lasted between 2007 and 2008. So if you're watching Friday Night Lights and anything that occurs during that time, you just have to watch with the time frame and the time in mind. Sorry, y'all. I'm sitting on my locks for so long. So season 1 starts out actually season 2 starts out during the summer. So last time we left with Friday Night Lights, season 1, Miss Taylor had just found out she was pregnant. Her name is Tammy. Tammy Taylor just found out she was pregnant. Okay, and we saw that Julie was still dating Matt. They had just told each other they had loved each other. Waverly had broken off with Smash. And I think we saw Tyra had got into a situation where she was a victim of assault. And so I thought they actually was going to drop that storyline. But that storyline actually moved forward in season 2. Coach Taylor had taken a job at TMU. Lila had given her life over to the Lord. Jason was coaching at Dillon. Street is Jason. Tim, Tim, I still have a soft place in my heart for Tim, and it still continued this season. I had a soft place in my heart for Tim. Tim was still figuring it out. He was kind of all over the place. Smash was doing well. It's his senior year. He was going to 12th grade. And so they had just won a national championship. And so, Buddy and his buddy had an affair with Tyra's mom. And, him and his wife were separated. And so they were navigating their new version of family. And who else? I think I covered everybody. Oh, so anyway, starting on season 2. So season 2, Julie has liked this other guy. Julie is working as a lifeguard at the pool during the summertime, and her mama is about to give birth. And so at the time, Coach Taylor is in Austin, because he's the quarterback coach now at TMU, and so he's at the mini camp or whatever, and Miss Taylor goes in labor the first episode. And I was a little upset about that because I thought we was gonna get like the whole pregnancy situation. He was gonna stay in Dillon, to support her, and the whole storyline was, well, she wanted to stay in Dillon because she wanted to continue to be a counselor at the school, and then he was gonna stay because now she was having a baby. But instead, Tammy told him to go and pursue his dream because she didn't want him to be in resentment of the whole situation. So basically what she was trying to avoid ended up happening because him being in Austin and her being in Dylan, it put a huge strain on their marriage. She was wore out, tired. Julie wasn't, the most helpful or the most understanding. And I'm not even gonna hold y'all. Julie annoyed me season 1. But Julie really annoyed me season 2. And I understand like these are teenagers. Cause I was a teenager not that long ago. And I just feel like, she could have just been a little bit more understanding. Your mama had a baby. Typically, like, well, at least for me, for the most part, when I've seen, that large of a gap being between the older child and the younger child, the older child, especially if they were the only child and they wanted to be and they wanted to have a sibling, they were in love. Julie was not in love with Gracie, and Julie ended up being Gracie's godmom. It was just, she was not in love with Gracie. I felt like she was kind of jealous of the attention that Gracie was getting. But I was just like, well, what does she really expect? Because Gracie is a baby. Gracie didn't ask to be there. And I felt like, her parents didn't really, they talked to her. There were times where her parents did sit down and talk to her. But, I guess Julie kind of felt like she went under the radar as far as with her parents. She didn't handle her father going to TMU well because she just felt like, she wanted to stay in Dillon because she was like, I'm always moving. I never get it right. She was like, this is the first time, we moved somewhere and it felt like home. And so for everything to be turning out the way it did in season 2, I was just like, but this is not what I thought was going to happen. So I think the major storyline of season 2, the major 2 storylines to me of season 2 would be the situation with Tyra and the situation with Smash. Now, these were 2 huge situations, one dealing with SA and one dealing with race. But what happened was with Tyra. So as we know, Tyra was assaulted at the end of season 1. But, as season 1 went on, we thought the situation with the guy was over. Well, the situation arose again in season 2, and he ended up like stalking Tyra. So he was following her. And so, Landry and Tyra had got kind of close because at the time, Landry was the only person that Tyra had told, Landry always had a crush on Tyra, but, he was helping her with, her math because Tyra had kind of turned over a new leaf, especially after she experienced that situation with her mom and the dude she was married to. Tyra was like, I don't want to be like my mom. I want to change. I want to do better. So Tyra started applying herself. Tyra had cut off Tim Riggins, which was crazy because I just thought they would never. I thought they had that toxic kind of love. I thought they would never stop messing around. But she started messing with Tim Riggins. She was applying herself, doing her schoolwork, hanging around different people. Her and Julie had gotten really close or whatever. And so one night, Tyra and Landry had went to the store. He just went to get a couple snacks because they was hanging out. And the dude, Tyra was outside and Landry went inside, and the dude got out of the car and started assaulting Tyra. And when they were out, she was out there fighting with him. Landry came out and kind of shoved the guy. The guy punched Landry, pushed him down. So Landry picked up a steel pole and he struck the man twice and knocked the man unconscious. So he didn't mean to do it, but when he looked down on the ground, picked the man up, the man was bleeding. So he tried, instead of them calling the paramedics, they tried to put the guy in the car and drive him to the hospital. But the guy ended up losing his life on the way to the hospital. And so it was a lot for them. And in a split decision, they decided to throw his body over the bridge into the river. So for weeks, Tyra and Landry went on with this secret. Tyra felt peace because she knew that the guy who was bothering her was no longer living. But Landry, on the other hand, Landry was very much into his faith. And so the guy losing his life played a heavy toll on Landry. And I think they captured that. But also during this time, Landry had started playing football. So Landry had gotten into like a different social circle because at one point he was just looked at as a nerd. But he ended up like becoming like one of the, I ain't gonna say a key player, but he was, doing his thing on the field. Like, and he had no football experience, and I don't know if this was his senior year or his junior year, but he ended up having some very like game winning plays, scenes on the show. So, come to find out, Landry's father was a police, and he started noticing some patterns with Landry or whatever. Tyra and Landry were hanging out, and so he kind of thought that Landry's father pretty much thought that Landry was like a geek or a nerd or something. At least that's how I interpreted it, and he didn't think that Landry would ever be with a girl like Tyra. And so he kind of questioned Tyra a little bit, and it got to the point where he told Landry's father found out that Tyra had some affiliation with the dude, and he ended up coming to Tyra and was like, I don't want you seeing my son no more. So Tyra had left Landry alone. But it never came out on the show. Tyra never said anything to Landry about his father saying anything to her and about them stop seeing each other, because she just said, I can't be with you or whatever like that. She never really, she gave Landry some really like crazy excuse as to why they couldn't be together, but she never told Landry. And I thought that was crazy. And the writers never had that revealed. But come to find out, Landry's father ended up telling Landry about what he knew about Tyra. And so Landry ended up spilling the beans because the guilt was starting to weigh him down. And then the guy's brother wanted to have a talk with all his brother's victims, and he wanted to speak with Tyra, but Tyra no longer wanted to speak with him. And so Landry went in his place, and the guy was like, I know all this stuff that was done, everything that he done, but that was still my brother. And I think that conversation really impacted Landry in a way that he didn't expect. And so Landry ended up going to his father, confessing. They got a lawyer. Landry's father took the before the police could figure out that it was Landry. Landry's father took Landry's station wagon to like this remote location and set the car on fire to burn all the evidence. But come to find out, at the end, they ended up not pressing no charges because of the guy's past, because Tyra was just one of many victims. Luckily, Tyra, it didn't get to the point where he, Tyra, but he still assaulted her, and it was still a lot for her to deal with because she felt unsafe, she felt unprotected. And I just hate that Tyra had to go through that situation. I was just so glad that Tyra was able to fight him both times. I just it was a hard watch. It was seriously a hard watch. I was just like, ooh, I was on the edge of my seat watching it. But Landry was a good guy. And so I think that put into perspective with Tyra, because Tyra will always go after guys like Riggins. She would never give guys like Landry a chance. I ain't gonna say a good guy, because I think Riggins is a good guy. He just, got a lot going on. But I think it put Tyra into the perspective of guys like Landry go overlooked because they're deemed as not cool or they deemed as lame. But those guys are really quality people. You just have to get to know them, And then the other situation with Smash. Smash was dating this girl, and she was Caucasian. And with them living in Dillon, people in Dillon weren't as progressive, especially you have to think about the time. This was around 2007, 2008. And, the world wasn't as progressive in 2007, as it is now. I mean, there were interracial couples in 2007, yes, but in places like Texas, especially rural places like Texas, I'm sure it was an anomaly. And so there was this dinner that Smash, and I forget the girl he was dating's name, but she had this brother who went to school, and so she was very familiar with like the college and the scouting process and committing to schools and everything. So she kind of helped Smash with his business affairs or whatever like that. And so one day Smash's family and her family was having a dinner, and the topic came up between the parents and Smash and the girl. And the girl's parents basically said that she didn't want her daughter dating Smash because I ain't gonna say that they didn't see a problem with it, but they wasn't for it because they knew like the situation that would come with it. And that episode really, 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 really reminded me of this episode of Moesha. I don't remember what season of Moesha it happened in, but Moesha had a friend that she went to preschool with named Matt, and her and Matt went on a date, and they just were like terrorized that whole time they were on their date. And so Smash was like really adamant at the table with his mom and her parents about how the world is changing, that they don't look at they don't view things like that. Ooh, excuse me, I'm sorry, excuse me. That they don't view the world like that. And so Smash one day took his sister with him, but him and the girl went to a movie. And so Smash was sitting on the row. Him and his girlfriend was sitting on the row in front of his sister, and then behind his sister on the row behind, was a group of white guys. And one of the guys, the guys kept picking at his sister and kept like, messing with her and teasing her and stuff. And so Smash turned around and told him to stop. And then one of the guys go say, well, I was thinking I could get one of yours since you got one of ours. And so that made Smash mad, and Smash hit the dude. Well, at the time, Smash had tons of scholarship offers, and he had already verbally committed to TMU, which is the school that Coach Taylor left to come back to Dillon. And so basically the group of guys pressed charges saying that they didn't do anything. They did interviews on the news. They're saying Smash was a thug. This was after Smash had already issued an apology. But then Smash kind of reneged his apology after he saw their interview. And he was just like, they deserved it. I'm taking back he didn't say I'm taking back my apology, but basically the reporter was like, do you take back your apology? And he was like, yes. He was like, because they're not good people. And people was even calling their house saying foul things to Smash's sister. It was all kinds of stuff. And so basically the board ended up calling Coach Taylor saying that they were going to suspend Smash for 3 games, basically because it didn't look good. But my whole thing was, and we never got this resolution, was Smash never told Coach Taylor what the dude said. Smash never explained the situation to Coach Taylor. Smash did get arrested, but Coach Taylor, I think, went and got him out. Or somehow he got a lawyer. He ended up getting out. They never talked about how the people were calling and threatening and calling over the phone. Smash never said any of that to his mom. So I don't even know if his mom, we never knew if his mom or if Coach Taylor, if anybody ever knew anything like that. Because I think those were important details to, those were important details to state, especially when Smash was on the team. He was one of the star players on the team. It was his senior year. All his scholarships were leaving. Everybody was finding what he did, a conflict of interest. Or what did the Alabama coach say? The Alabama coach said that, no, not the Alabama coach, the TMU coach said that he had questionable character. And that right there reminded me a lot of Jace. That reminded me a lot of Jace from Swagger. When Jace had to go before the managing board to apologize for what he did on behalf of Crystal. When what he did, when just like Smash, on behalf of his sister, he did what he thought was right. He was protecting his sister. At least Jace and them got to say that on Swagger. At least it was written to the point where they got to state their case and explain why they felt like they were justified in what they were doing. They didn't give Smash the opportunity. And, like, it's just crazy because we had another situation during the show where this guy was Santiago. I thought Santiago was a good storyline because Santiago got out of juvie, and honestly, I'm not even gonna hold you. Santiago's storyline also reminded me a lot of Vince's storyline in Swagger. Santiago was a guy who was he wasn't in jail, but he was in like juvie. And basically something happened with his family. His family got deported. So basically he was an orphan. And so Lila ended up helping him get a job at Garrity Motors. He got enrolled in school. Buddy Garrity got Santiago on the team, to give him some structure because he wanted people to look after Santiago because he knew Santiago needed it. And, a lot of people had already turned their back on him and viewed him as a certain way because he had come from juvie and he had a tough background. But Buddy gave him a chance, and I think Santiago realized that or whatever. And so Santiago was still trying to do right, and then he had some old friends, and so he was trying to move on, and then ended up the watch, Buddy Garrity's vintage watch, ended up getting missing, and Santiago knew one of his friends took it, so he went to his friend's house to basically get the watch back, and he ended up getting into a fight, and then Santiago was still there because in scenes prior, I saw Santiago in the background on the field. But then when I looked up, because at one point I thought Santiago was going to jail after he beat up his friend, because that would have definitely been a violation of parole. And so I was looking up, just to see if Santiago storyline was moving forward in season 3. Not even to find out if Santiago actually, what was going to happen with him. I just wanted to see if he was going to be in season 3. And come to find out, Santiago's storyline got dropped in between whether or not season 2 at the end, between the season 2 ending and whether or not the show would have been renewed for season 3. So let me tell you something. Friday Night Lights went through the ringer. I'm surprised it got 5 seasons because with this writer's strike going on in 2007, 2008, it really messed a lot of stuff up. And the thing is, the storylines in season 2 was good. Like, it wasn't even like the storylines was terrible. It's just the fact that a lot of storylines had no conclusion. And how could I forget? I need to mention this part. The whole thing with Landry. The storyline with Landry, I felt like it was intense with Landry and Tyra. The storyline with Landry and Tyra was intense, but it was good. And then come to find out, it didn't have good reception with the audience, and so it was never built back up in season 3. So after the charges got dropped, that was the end of it. We never heard anything about. We're never going to hear anything about the situation with Landry and Tyra ever again. Some minor things that happened. I think that Tammy had her sister living there. Tammy had her sister living with her, and so it kind of put a strain on the household because I don't think Eric was the biggest, fan of her sister, but I think the sister being there helped Tammy out a lot because Tammy was struggling, and I don't think there was any language for it. I know there was postpartum language in 2007, 2008, but I don't think, I'm pretty sure postpartum didn't have the awareness and the education that it has now in 2023. But I think that Tammy might have been going through a stint of postpartum depression because it seemed like, she was always tired. And plus, she was doing a lot. Like she was trying to act as two parents. Julie wasn't helpful at all. Julie was struggling, but with her sister being there, she was kind of able to, keep eyes on Julie and keep Julie straight. Julie had a situation with her teacher that was, slightly inappropriate. It never came back up again after Tammy did, say something to him about it, about him, about the relationship being inappropriate, but it never came back up again during the rest of season two. Another storyline that came back up. You remember in season one, Tim Riggins was in his inappropriate relationship with this older woman who had a young son. We never saw the young son again, but um, she ended up breaking things off with Tim and started dating Tim's brother, which was trifling. And so Tim was upset about that with his brother. And so Tim ended up leaving to basically Tim left his house to go stay with Tyra. Tyra gave him 2 days. Then there was this guy that Tyra kind of put Tim, I guess, kind of hooked him up with for a place to stay. But come to find out, the guy had a whole lab in the back of his place cooking up street candy, and come to find out he was one of the biggest street candy dealers in Dillon. And so that got messy because Tim ended up stealing the rent money from him to give to his brother because they was behind on rent, $2,000. They was about to get evicted or foreclosed on. And then Tim also ended up had a staying with Coach Taylor until Coach Taylor put him out because he thought that he was doing something inappropriate with Julie, and Tim wasn't. He didn't even give Tim a chance either to explain himself. But Tim did save Julie during a storm because there was this huge tornado situation or something that hit Dillon, and he saved her because they were out in the storm. They shouldn't have left the house in the first place because the weather was nasty, but they ended up leaving. They got caught and stuck at a store. Also, there was a team whose school got destroyed by the funnel, and they ended up all those students had to end up coming to Dillon, being at Dillon. We never really found out what happened to the team or the coach. That storyline was kind of bought up, but kind of unfinished as well, because a lot of the students from that school and from Dillon ended up getting into fights. They was going back and forth, and then Coach Taylor got into it with the coach too. But come to find out, the coach was going through a hard time and something with his wife. But we never found out what happened to that coach again. So yeah, there was a lot of good storylines that started that never really had no conclusion. So season 2 was still good, but it's just like nothing stuck. And so now I feel like I'm going into season 3 and I'm going to get a whole new slate of storyline, but it ain't going to have nothing to do with season 2. And I'm pretty sure I read something similar to that online when I was reading about Santiago. So, hashtag where's Waverly? That situation with Waverly and her mental health, I thought that was a good, storyline. But it kind of fell to the wayside, and we never saw Waverly again. We saw Waverly Daddy, but we never saw Waverly again. But at the end of the season, Smash ended up committing to this school called Whitmore, which I think was a HBCU. It's not what he wanted. His mama wanted him to go there, but he ended up committing there, and we saw him crying. Because I guess he kind of felt like he was this top dog. He was this top-notch player, and, his career ended up not going the way he thought it was going to go. That's real life, but I was just like, ooh, Smash been through it. Smash been through it. And you want to know another person who kind of went through it a little bit before I wrapped this video up was Matt Saracen. I got a soft place in my heart for Matt Saracen. He is the sweetest guy ever, but he had abandonment issues, and rightfully so. It kind of reminded me of Spencer a little bit from All American, because after Billy died in All American, Spencer went through this phase where he just felt like people always left him, and that's kind Ooh, excuse me. That's kind of how Matt was. His father left him for war. We never knew anything about his mom. Julie left him for another guy. He felt like Coach Taylor left him to go to TMU right when he was, starting to do good in football. And then, he started liking his grandma's in-home nurse, and they had started to develop a relationship. Then she left and went back to Guatemala. So he just kept feeling like, people was leaving him. And, Coach Taylor ended up having to have a little heart-to-heart with him after he threw him in the tub, and, because he was a little intoxicated. But he ended up, getting him together. And so that was the end of season 2. So yeah. Sorry y'all, this was a little lengthy and I was a little chatty, but I just, it's a good show. And I'm probably going to be so sad with the ending of the show. But I'm not going to read ahead. I'm going to watch it. I got 3 more seasons. Well, technically 2 because I'm finna start season 3. I don't think, I think the other seasons are short. I don't think the seasons following are as long as season 1. So I probably should be finished with this show within the next 2 weeks. But it's just, crazy. Y'all, I'm sorry. I had to insert this video because there was 2 things that happened that I forgot to mention. One was, actually, it was 2 things. Both of them are concerning Jason. One, Jason talked to somebody. I think he was talking to some doctor. And if you remember in season 1, Jason reached a settlement with Dylan with his whole accident. So Jason basically had to come to terms with the fact that he was not walking anymore. And so after him not making the rugby team, the Paralympic rugby team, he was still playing rugby, but he had started coaching at Dylan. And so Jason was still going to his appointments, and Jason met with a doctor, and there was a doctor who had gave him, some information about they were trying stem cell research. We're trying to get people who were paralyzed to walk again. So basically, he told Jason that there's this guy who does this procedure in Mexico. So Jason ended up fussing Riggins out because Riggins was going through at the time. Riggins was not going to practice. So Riggins and Jason ended up going to Mexico and staying in Mexico for a week because Jason was going to go through with this procedure to have these stem cells from a shark inserted in his back. But come to find out, the reason why the doctor, I think he was an American doctor at that. He was an American doctor working in Mexico doing these procedures on people using stem cells from sharks. It was no guarantee that it was going to work. It was not FDA approved in the United States, which is why they had to end up going to Mexico to get it done. And the procedure was $10,000. So basically, Jason was going to use all of the money a good portion of the money he had got from the settlement to get this procedure done. So then Riggins, was in Mexico turning up. But of course, he came to the conclusion that, maybe this is something that shouldn't be done. And Jason's not listening to him because he told him that he was going to do it. He didn't care what he said because he had a dream that he was going to be able to walk, and he just know that this is something that, is going to happen for him. So he's like, really thinking he's going to walk again. And so Riggins ended up calling Lila, asking Lila to come down to Mexico because at this point, Jason, he thinks that Lila is the only person that Jason is going to listen to. So come to find out, Lila came down there. She ain't even on good terms with Jason because Jason kind of cheated on her while they was engaged. And so she come down there trying to get Jason straight. And so Jason ends up jumping off the boat that they own and into the water. And I just knew that Jason was trying to, take himself out the game. Because I'm just like, how in the world? This is the ocean. How he gonna swim? But You know, he used his arms and a wave ended up getting him to shore and they ended up finding him. And, you know, he finally decided not to, you know, he decided not to have a procedure. The second thing that happened to Jason that was major, Jason went on a date with this girl, and he thought the girl was strange because the girl had started, you know, talking about some weird stuff, like some, I don't even know how I can say that on YouTube without getting, you know, a strike on my channel. So I'm just gonna say she wanted to do some really interesting encounters with him, and he was not for that, and so he was freaked out, and he basically got the waitress to kind of lie for him. And so the waitress lied for him, and she ended up taking him home because he had no ride. And so they ended up having a one night stand, and come to find out, it had been a couple weeks, and Jason had some car trouble, and the car trouble was very expensive. And so he was freaking out because at this time he had moved out of his mom and daddy house. He was living on his own with one of the friends he met from his rehab facility. And he didn't have the money to pay to get his car fixed. And so Buddy Garrity hired him at the dealership, and the girl came up on Jason at the dealership saying that she is expecting. So now Jason is about to be a father. Now at this point, Jason don't even know if his swimmers can swim, because he was told that, you know, there's a 20%, he only has a 20% chance of ever, you know, getting somebody fertilized. But now, you know, he had read some stuff online, and he deems it as a miracle. You know, and in situations like that, it is a miracle, because he thought that he would never have a family. So now he is trying to convince this girl to have his baby, because he don't know if he'll ever get another opportunity to be a father, and they are both 19. So to be a parent and to be an almost husband at 19, it's a lot going on. It's giving all American very much. I'm just like, why these people, why they want to rush marriage and being with somebody down their throat? Why can't they just be teenagers and enjoy life? But yeah, that's my spiel. Okay, so we can go back to the video now. But yeah, y'all, like, comment, subscribe. I will be back with more videos. Deuces.